Have you ever wondered how economists even begin to talk about a whole country's economy? All the buying, all the selling, all the producing, like it's one single machine? Well, they actually have a tool for that. It's like a dashboard, a really powerful way to see the whole picture at once. And today, we're going to build it piece by piece. Seriously, what if I told you that a single graph, just one, could help explain huge, complex ideas like recessions, inflation, and even economic growth? It sounds way too simple to be true, right? But that's the magic of what's called the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. It's our key to understanding the really big economic questions. So before we start putting our dashboard together, we need to look at the blueprint. And this isn't just some dusty old theory from a textbook. It's an idea that has a real history, one that was built to tackle some very real-world problems. This whole idea got started back in the 1950s, but it really took off in the 1970s. Why then? Well, that was a time when crazy, runaway inflation was the #1 economic headache, and people needed a better way to figure it out. Since then, it's been tweaked and updated, and now it's the go-to tool for understanding the macroeconomy. All right, let's grab our first tool for the toolkit. This is the demand side of the economy. Think of it as a chart of the entire country's spending habits, basically everything that we, plus businesses and the government, are ready to buy. We call this aggregate demand. Now, what's really important to get is that aggregate demand, or AD for short, isn't about the demand for one thing, like coffee or cars. Nope, we're talking about the total demand for everything added together. It shows us how much stuff the entire country will buy at different overall price levels. And here it is. Looks pretty simple, doesn't it? Just a downward sloping line. On the side, that vertical axis, you've got the overall price level. And along the bottom, the horizontal axis, that's real GDP, which is just a fancy way of saying the total amount of stuff the economy is producing. The curve just shows that, hey, when average prices go down, people tend to buy more. But wait a minute, that's the big question, right? I mean, for a single item, it makes sense. If iPhones get cheaper, more people buy them. But if everything gets cheaper, that means your salary probably is too. So why would we buy more overall? Well, it turns out there are 3 pretty clever reasons. First up is the wealth effect. If all prices drop, that $100 bill in your wallet can suddenly buy more stuff than it could yesterday. You literally feel richer, so you spend a bit more. Then there's the interest rate effect. When prices are low, people don't need to hold as much cash, so they save more. All that extra saving pushes interest rates down, which makes it cheaper for businesses to borrow money and invest. And finally, the international trade effect. When our prices fall, our products become a bargain for other countries, so they buy more from us. Our exports go up. All 3 of those things work together to make the curve slope down. Okay, so that covers the buying side. But you can't buy something if no one's selling it, right? So let's build the other half of our model, the supply side. This is all about what businesses across the country can and will produce at any given price level. Now, with supply, time is absolutely everything. In the short run, some business costs, especially wages, are kind of sticky. They're locked in by contracts. So think about it. If the price of your product suddenly goes up, but your payroll costs stay the same, your profits go through the roof. That makes you want to produce as much as you can. But in the long run, those contracts get renegotiated, wages catch up, and what your company can really produce depends on real things, like your technology, your workers, and your equipment. And you can see that difference clear as day right here. The short-run curve slopes up. Higher prices lead to more production. But look at the long-run curve. It's a straight vertical line. That's showing us that in the long run, after all the dust settles and wages adjust, the economy's total potential output has nothing to do with the price level. It's determined by real things, like our resources and our technology. All right, we have our 2 main components, what everyone is buying and what everyone is selling. Now for the magic. Let's put them on the same graph and see what happens when the total demand in the country meets the total supply. And boom, there it is, that single point where all 3 lines cross. That's our macroeconomic equilibrium. You can think of it as a vital sign for the entire economy. In one glance, it tells us the current price level and the current level of output, our real GDP. It's where everything is in balance. But of course, the real economy is never just sitting still, is it? Things are always changing. So now for the fun part. Let's start pushing some buttons and pulling some levers on our dashboard to see how real-world events can shift these curves and change the whole economic picture. This table is basically our cheat sheet. Let's see. The government cuts taxes. Okay, people have more money, so they spend more. That's going to shift aggregate demand to the right. What about a big spike in oil prices? Well, that makes it more expensive for almost every business to produce stuff, so that shifts short-run aggregate supply to the left. A cool new technology comes out? That's awesome. It boosts productivity and shifts both supply curves to the right. See? This is how we turn news headlines into actual economic analysis.
Okay, let's take that first example and really walk through it. Imagine the government announces a big cut in personal income taxes, hoping to give the economy a little boost. What does our brand new dashboard predict is going to happen?
Well, the first thing that happens is that you and I have more cash in our pockets, more disposable income. So, naturally, we go out and spend more. That increase in consumption pushes the entire aggregate demand curve over to the right, from 81 to 82. So what's the outcome of that shift? Well, the economy settles at a new short-run equilibrium, and our model shows us two things have happened. One, real GDP is higher. That means the economy grew and unemployment probably went down. Great. But the overall price level also went up. And that, my friends, is inflation. So, at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Because this simple model, this dashboard, perfectly captures the fundamental trade-offs that leaders and policymakers are dealing with every single day. It lets us see the causes of the things we hear about constantly in the news: inflation and recession. It's the very tool that helps governments and central banks decide when to hit the gas on the economy and when to pump the brakes. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. Our model makes it crystal clear. There's no such thing as a free lunch in economics. Every time we push for more growth, we run the risk of higher inflation. So the constant challenge, the real balancing act, is figuring out how to weigh those two things. How much inflation are we willing to accept for a little more growth? That's the tough question this dashboard forces every single one of us to think about.